Good evening, everyone. What an exciting event this is. I am Angela Charles, Director of Charlotte Water, and I want to welcome everyone to this joyous occasion. We planned to hold this event last Friday, but at the beginning of the week, we were unsure as to how the hurricane would impact our area. So for safety, we moved the event to today. So I'm so glad to see so many of you all took the time to make it on our rain date, which is today. Today is a day of celebration. The history of this plant and tower goes back about 100 years. And so, however, before we start talking about the celebration and the reason why we're here, we want to thank a few of our special guests. I have on the stage with me Councilmember Malcolm Graham. He has been an advocate for work on this corridor and has worked for many, many years in public service. Also, I want to recognize Mrs. Natalie Beard, an active representative and resident of the McCrory Heights neighborhood. Also not with us is Mr. Jack Thompson. He's the director of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Historic Landmarks Commission. He is ill, so please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And do we have any other elected officials or commissioners present? If so, if you would please stand. We have any? Okay, good. And certainly, last but not least, we'd like to thank the McCrory Heights community for sharing this special occasion with us. We are here this evening to show the recent lighting upgrades that have been installed on the Vest Water Tower. And we can't talk about this tower without talking about the Vest Water Treatment Plant. Both are important landmarks and symbolize over 100 years of water, urban, and industrial development in the Charlotte region. So what does this mean? Why do we make a big deal out of this? And it is because without the forethought, the determination, and innovative thinking decades ago, Charlotte would not likely become the city that it is today. And it all started with a lack of water supply. Back in 1911, Charlotte was a small city. It had barely 34,000 residents, and the water supply came from Irwin Creek. Back then, it was called Big Chagall Creek at the time and Stewart's Creek, okay? However, when a drought hit the summer of 1911, the creeks weren't enough, the reservoirs ran dry, and water had to be delivered via the railroad. And if you're familiar with this property here, we've got railroad tracks over there at the pipe yard, via railroad whenever it was available. While the drought ended, it highlighted the importance for the city planners and for folks working in water to invest in a reliable and secure water pumping system. That's what this is. And so 100 years later, Charlotte Water continues to fulfill the same commitment to provide safe, reliable, clean drinking water for the city of Charlotte and its region. If you want to, and really when I think about forethought, you can really see the skyline. And those of us who work in water know that up underground, there is a direct connection between here and uptown Charlotte. So every worker in Charlotte, not only at this plant over here, but in all our plants and buildings and stations across the region, continue to think creatively, work intensely, and plan innovatively to meet the needs of our ever-growing region. So to talk more about Charlotte and the city, we're going to have Councilmember Malcolm Graham come up, and he's going to say a few words. Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Ms. Charles, and good evening, everyone. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Malcolm Graham, and I have the honor and the privilege of representing each and every one of you in the Charlotte City Council, representing District 2. I say that the West Side is the best side, and I'm glad to be here and glad to be your representative. I also want to thank Director Charles and the men and the women who work for Charlotte Water. The work that they do each and every day goes unseen by many, but the impact they make on our community to ensure that we have safe, clean drinking water, that the pipes that run underground stays connected and tight. You really don't know the work that these men and women do each and every day to ensure that we have a great quality of life. Would you just please give me a hand and give them a round of applause for all the work that they do? Now, for the last 3 or 4 years, many of the residents along the Batesville Road corridor have worked to improve the quality of life. For the last 10 years, there have been so many planning charrettes, neighborhood meetings, folks coming together. What can we do to improve the quality of life on this particular corridor? And one of the things that has always come to the top was, what can we do to use this water tower, this historic tower, to bring a shining light to the things that are happening today? Well, Mrs. Charles and I have been wrestling for the last 3 years. And through her creativity, her commitment to community empowerment and engagement, and her dedication to trying to be a great neighbor for this community, we've come up with, I think, is a wonderful, wonderful idea to bring a spotlight for all the work that we're doing here on the Batesville Road corridor. To bring a spotlight on the work of the development that we're doing through the corridors of opportunity, to ensure that Black and minority-owned firms get a fair share to invest on this corridor right here on Batesville Road, to bring a spotlight on the work that Johnson C. Smith University is doing with the $80 million that they just received from the Mayor's Racial Equity Program to ensure that our students that attend our HBCU receive the best quality education that they can. To bring a spotlight on the work that Diane Ward and Christopher Dennis and William Hughes and others who want to invest in this corridor to ensure that the quality of life in terms of being able to go and buy goods and services and banking and redevelop this corridor is done in a first-class way. To bring a spotlight on the work that we're doing with Charlotte Transit, to bring transportation options like our streetcar to this corridor in a big way. To bring a spotlight on the work that ATV, Violence Interruption Programs, those men and women walking on the ground trying to ensure that this community is safe and secure by trying to prevent issues and problems relating to crime, to stop it before it occurs. To bring a spotlight on all those things that we're doing here on this corridor. And now the spotlight is about to be turned on. To focus the attention of all the work that we're doing here on this corridor, but more importantly, to bring into a historic perspective all the work that Charlotte Water has done well over 100 years in this community. I want to thank personally the Neighborhood Association, McCrory Heights and Lincoln Heights, and all those others who've used their time and their energy and their resources to ensure that they provide community input. I believe that the people will follow, if the people will lead, the leaders will follow. And certainly the leadership provided by McCrory Heights and Lincoln Heights and all the residents up and down Batesville Road in West Charlotte has been significant and important. I want to congratulate you on the historic designation. Just because this community is changing doesn't mean that we should not forget about our history, our tradition, our legacy. And so this program, this lighting, is all about all of those things. History, legacy, tradition, shining a spotlight on the works that we're doing, not only on this corridor, but throughout the city of Charlotte. Again, I want to thank Mrs. Charles and her staff for all the work that they do each and every day. I want to thank the Neighborhood Association and its leaders for being patient and providing input and helping us lead the way to create a Charlotte that's better tomorrow than it is today. Thank you very much, and I look forward to turning the light on and shining a spotlight on all the great work that we're doing right here in the city of Charlotte, but specifically right here on this corridor, West Charlotte, Batesville Road, West Trade Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Graham. The history of Vest is important, just as the history of the Beatties Ford Road corridor. As the city of Charlotte began to form, this corridor was the central location for building a sustainable water distribution center. This area was the only high point within 4 miles of the city limits. Now, I'm talking about, 100 years ago. Also, this location was key because it was accessible to roads, to streets, and the railroad. The elevation of this particular parcel and land was needed to support the water pipe between the Catawba River and the city of Charlotte. And again, for the Charlotte water folks, you all know what's underground, and you know about the pipe network that had to be installed between Mountain Island Lake and this location. So as I mentioned before, the plant and tower have a long-standing connection to this neighborhood. And while some of that history has been complex, and Ms. Beard and I have talked about that several times, I am personally appreciative of the partnership that we continue to build between Charlotte Water and the neighborhood. I'd like to welcome Natalie Beard, active community representative and McQuarrie Heights residents, to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Director Charles, and welcome to what we consider to be a very welcoming, flowing community here in McQuarrie Heights. The history that has been identified by the Councilman Graham and the information that's given to you in your program is almost to the point of telling an important story. And if anyone were to sort of think about the ways in which the visionaries and our ancestors thought about this kind of opportunity, it would almost seem a little bit to be fortuitous that we would have at this point in life a collaboration in which one generation tells a story about not being able to purchase land. Another generation starts talking about the need for having land so that it can have its own establishment, establishing a university that is going to make sure the opportunities of education are available for all. And then the other generation tells about the stories of some of us growing up, running up and down the streets, not even understanding the type of connection, what happens with the water vest treatment and part that. Then the generation moves on further and talks about the importance of a partnership, a collaboration of the city and the residential community working together to start talking about having meetings in the Vest water treatment plant, showing us how it actually happens. So the other part of education now is expanded even for us. So the idea that our councilman from District 2 has worked so diligently with Director Charles is very important, because as this situation changes, the story now changes now that we're in District 1, and so we have other representatives to take care of us. So those kinds of importance and understanding about flowing from a vision of abundance, of resiliency, and the importance of understanding about being and building community is what this community stands for. And our major connection when we start talking about illuminating and lights turning on, consider the stories of persons that will tell. At one end, you see the clock tower at Biddle Hall, looking forward and telling us another, and then you come up further here to this area and you see where homes and things were at one point, and now this works out to be now a positive for this community. We look forward to welcoming those of you to our community, learning our history and understanding our importance and understanding how visionary and leadership makes a big difference. And as the councilman has already identified, I have to make sure there are extra remarks given to the director because her staff has been so intentional and every detail is down to the part. They even arrange for the change in the weather so that we can have this kind of thing. So I do think we need to give another round of applause because her detail from that. This community continues to flow and we grow from the faithfulness and goodness that we have. So we thank you now and we look forward to us getting together and talking about how Dr. McCrory, as he would see us now, there are many angels smiling, thinking about, I knew you all would figure out a way to work this out. And he has continued, and that kind of visionary has inspired and encouraged so many of us, and we look forward to this opportunity and the continuation of this collaboration.
Thank you, Ms. Beard. There are many reasons why this building and plant and tower are historical, but as many of you may know, the Vest plant and also this tank are designated historical nationally and locally, and we just think that is outstanding. Jack Thompson, Executive Director of the Historic Commission, is ill, but he sent remarks. I got them at about 4:30 today. He really wanted to be here, and I'm going to read some of what he sent. They were just excellent remarks about this tank. On April 15, 1991, the City of Charlotte, with the support and endorsement of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Utility Department, that is the old name of Charlotte Water, passed a local ordinance designating the Charlotte Water Works Vest Station and this gateway to Uptown as a local landmark. This is one of 365 landmarks across Mecklenburg County. And while there are other water towers that are landmarks, this facility represents the apex of modern art architecture in the city of Charlotte in the 1920s through the 1930s. The Art Modern movement was the predecessor of the mid-century modernism and was a reaction to earlier Victorian and colonial revival styles. So if you're in the art and understand architecture, you'll know those terms. And what it says here is that at that time, the style was streamlined with elegance, strength and simplicity, and understated geometry. And if you think about those three terms, if you look at that tank, that really describes the architecture around the tank. I'm going to read that again. Streamlined with elegance, strength and simplicity, and understated geometry. That reminds me of a conversation I had with Ms. Beard, because the word we used was classy. That whatever we do with this tank needed to be classy. And that goes in with the type of architecture and time period this tank was constructed in. It was built and designed 1922 by Durham engineer William Pyatt. And it says here that the impact of the drought in 1911 is really the reason why this whole facility here, and I talked about that earlier, was constructed. Now, he goes on to say that they have received proposals that simply were not approved because of the effect of the landmark. So once something's designated historic, you really have to look at it and see how it impacts the landmark. He goes on to say that this was not the case here. He says that Charlotte Water is a diligent and conscientious steward of this historic place, and that garnering the approval for this exciting project to light and highlight the history was an easy yes for the Charlotte Historic Landmarks Commission. And so the commission, he's saying on behalf of the commission, they were honored to partner with this community and Charlotte Water, and they're thanking the organization for its stewardship. So can you kind of give a hand clap in honor of the Charlotte Historic Commission, and just send in comments and to add context to what we are doing. Okay, so it's getting dark, and I know you all are getting excited to see the lights come on. But in closing, I'd like to talk about the upgrades that were made to the water tower. I call it water tank. I'm in the industry. Water tank, water tower, it's the same thing. Okay, this tower has more than 70 LED lights strategically placed and tilted across the tank walks and underneath to illuminate this tower. These are ultra high efficient LED fixtures built to last years and cost a little more than $7 a day to operate. The lights will not be the only upgrade in this area. We also have plans for future electric vehicle charging stations and a bench seating area with a historic display. And that is in partnership with Brandon Lunsford, Interim Director of Library Services at Johnson C. Smith University, and Historic Commission. So there's a little more work that's going to be done, but we want to do a permanent historic display. We've engaged someone from Johnson C. Smith and the Historic Commission to help us create the narrative that'll go on, along with the lighting. So in closing, I'd like to thank everyone involved in this project. First and foremost, our mayor and council has been tremendously supportive of Charlotte Water and what we have to accomplish and do in the community. I particularly want to thank Councilmember Graham for being on me for 3 years and challenging the organization to think about what could we do innovative here. We have Jennifer House, Charlotte DOT. We have Brandon Lunsford, again from Johnson C. Smith. First Baptist Church West, Greater Enrichment Program and Habitat for Humanity, and of course, Natalie Beard and members of the McCory Heights neighborhood. There was a project team. This doesn't happen overnight. We had to engage engineers. We had to have, consultants. We also had to have vendors and electricians and all of that to pull this off. So when I call your name, if you'll just raise your hand to recognize you. Ryan LeBlanc from Brown and Caldwell Consultants. Is Ryan here? That's Ryan. Will Scholl from HDR Design Team. Will. Olivia Childers and her team at Smart Electric Company. Where's Olivia? Olivia, will you stand up, please? I want you all to turn around and look at Olivia. Olivia has climbed this tank about 50 times, and she installed the lights and moved them and did the angles, and so Olivia, thank you for your diligence and work. Colin Murray at Traxton Technologies. John Huber, who is ill. John Huber manages water treatment for Charlotte Water. I often say He's got the formula in his head because we do have good drinking water. So our folks from Best Water Treatment Plant, we thank you. Jennifer Frost and Janelle Poole, the communications team, you guys raise your hands. You've done a wonderful job at pulling this off and organizing. Charlotte Water staff and volunteers, if you're a volunteer, please know that we thank you for being here on a Friday night and for helping us with this event. And last but not least, will all of my Charlotte Water employees stand up? You all work every day. You're one water strong with the mission and vision. If you'll stand up, thank you. If you will just join me in recognizing our Charlotte Water folks. You know, as we get up many mornings, thank you. And, you know, we turn on the tap or we flush. And, you know, we really don't worry about it. It's expected. But it's a mighty workforce of 1,200 folks who work 24/7 to make sure that we all have water and wastewater services. And so I thank you all for what you do. We have some folks watching us virtually. So thank you for watching us and for sharing this day with us. And so I think we are ready for the light show. Now what we're going to do is we're going to count down. When I say start, we're going to count at 10. And we have a button here that we're going to press. And hopefully we can see this tank. And it will light up every night from this point on forward. So this is truly a historic day. So I'm going to ask Councilmember Graham and Ms. Beard to come up with me. And I guess everybody can put a little finger, be ready to press the button. Okay? And I'm looking for my CorpCom people, and I assume we are ready. So we're going to start at 10. Okay? So when I go 1, 2, 3, we'll do 10. How is that? 1, 2, 3. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press it. Let there be light. Wonderful. Well, that concludes our ceremony. We'll be doing the electric slide and the wobble and everything else until 9 p.m. Thank you all for attending and take your pictures.